So lately I've been doing videos about topics that I probably would be like, I don't want to do a video about this, but I've been thinking about this idea, this what I'm about to talk about. Not the title of this episode, but what we're gonna get into in just a moment. Um, I'm curious as to what you all think about this idea because I think it's time to retire something. It's time to retire something, or at least if you're of the Christian tradition like I am, then it may be time to rethink how you think about this particular topic. But let's get into this in a second. But first things first, welcome to CNN. I'm Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. A couple days ago, news hit the sports world. Unfortunately, not something that we've never seen before, but NBA star from the Houston Rockets, Kevin Porter Jr., who was a beast. Like he could play. I mean, he was a beast. He was arrested for domestic violence against his girlfriend, Kaiser Gondrazik, who also plays in professional sports in the WNBA, even though she hasn't played for a little bit. Kevin Porter's not big, like thick like me, but tall dude, good basketball player. But he's a man. He's a grown man. And he was arrested for beating on a woman, a grown woman. The details are pretty much this, that Kevin Porter was out partying in New York City. His girlfriend did not go, went back to his hotel to get in. She had went to sleep, locked the door. He had security open the door for him. And then minutes later, his girlfriend came running out of the hotel room, bloody and beat up and all of it. And here were her injuries that apparently, allegedly, were from him. A fractured vertebrae in her neck, inches long gash above her right eye, bruising and substantial pain to face, redness and bruising to neck, difficulty breathing, loss of motion in her left arm. Prosecutors say Porter Jr. didn't stop until Gondrazik ran out into the hallway covered in blood. Now, of course, everyone from Stephen A. on down is saying this man needs to be out of the NBA. Now, the NBA has a different policy than the NFL. The NFL, remember when Ray Rice hit his fiance in the elevator and the video caught it? And he was done. He never played in the NFL again. NBA, because of their collective bargaining agreement, has a different rule set. They can't even suspend him until they do an investigation. They could make him go on administrative leave, but everyone is saying he's done. And it's really sad on multiple levels. From a basketball perspective, it's sad because the Houston Rockets were getting a new head coach, the former head coach of the Boston Celtics, who was fired because of his infidelity with two of the owners or coaches' wives. But he's still a good coach. He took Boston to the NBA Finals against Golden State a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. So he's coming there. Kevin Porter they got a good young team, drafted player. From a basketball perspective, it's sad, but it's sadder for a reason that I want to get into. It's a much sadder reason. And I never say this. I actually never say this I forget to say this all the time, but please like and subscribe to the channel. Make the algorithm think you like me because I like you, all right? But I want to talk about something different because this is a tragic thing. But let's just be clear. This is going to come and go like everything else. If you're a believer, we live in a fallen world, and there are way worse things that happen to people that never get reported. Some of you may have had things happen to you that have never been reported, that no one will ever be outraged about. And no one knows except you, a few other people in the Lord, right? So I'm not minimizing at all what happened to this woman. It's just sad. It's tragic, especially when you're an NBA player. You're making millions of dollars. But you're still a human being, though. But I don't know what possessed this man to beat on his woman like that. But he did, and I don't think there's any. I mean, who knows, right? Candace Owens would say, "Wait for the facts," right? Well, I think if it looks like what it is, he's probably going to prison. He's definitely, his NBA career is over, and I don't know all the details. But I want to talk about something else in relation to this. Some years ago, Charles Barkley, Rasheed Wallace, and a bunch of other NBA players. I can't remember who else was in this commercial, but there was a commercial where they were saying, "I am not a role model," right? I am not a role model. And the point of, and I don't remember all of it, but the point of the commercial, I forgot who did it. It was either Nike, I don't know who did it, but it was, the point of the commercial was those guys saying, "I'm not a role model. Like, I'm just a basketball player. I just play basketball." And I always was struck by that because I don't know why we do this, and I don't think this is an American issue. It's a human nature issue. But there is a fascination with idolizing, making people who are just talented somehow people that we should emulate. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not good to be motivated by people and all of that, but even among believers, I know people whose role models are not Jesus. They would rather have their role model be, Trump or all of the whoever, right? I'm not going to say Biden because nobody wants their children to be like Joe Biden, right? But there were some women, Kamala Harris, whatever, right? I don't know why, but there is something about the idea that if you're successful or famous, that you should be a role model. And you're not asking to be that. Most of these people are not asking to be role models. They're forced into this role. And if you're a believer, I think the Bible has so much to say about humanity and about the heart being wicked and deceptive, and no one can understand it but God, and all these different things. But for some reason, even among believers, there is this idolization of role models. Like, if you're, and it's fascinating because all you have to do is just to be, you either have to be attractive, which I am, I'm a plus size model, and you know it. You have to be able to rap, which you know I do. Yo, check it, right? You have to be an athlete, an actor, actress, a singer. But somehow, because people are talented and get paid money, they become the standard of who we should be like. And I don't understand why. And I'm saying this is how I've always been as a kid. I remember in elementary school, this used to always happen. This was a real question we would get in elementary school. If you were stranded on an island, who would you want to be with? Or it'd be like, who do you want to be when you grow up? And I always struggled with that question. I don't know if because of the way the Lord made me, I just struggled with that question. So I would just lie. And I used to say, like, Philip Michael Thomas, who was an actor with Don Johnson on a TV show called Miami Vice. I could never think of someone because, in all honesty, I just didn't think about people that way. And I still don't. this is where I came out of the womb. But I always was fascinated by, and don't get me wrong, I've been impressed with people, my favorite rappers, favorite basketball players. Full disclosure, I remember one time being in a Bennigan's restaurant in the restaurant in the DC area where I live. And I saw at the time the then point guard, Michael Adams, sitting in there by himself. He was a point guard of the Washington Bullets at the time. And I wasn't even a fan of the dude, but it was like when I saw him, I was like, well, that's Michael Adams. And I went and grabbed a napkin and I walked up to him and said, man, Mr. Michael Adams, man, can I get your autograph? And he kind of reluctantly signed it. And then when I left the restaurant, I felt dumb. I was like, why do I have this? I don't even like this dude. I threw that joint away. I was like, what did I? It was almost this desire to, oh, he's famous. I need to prove that I saw him and had his autograph, right? There's something about us as it relates to role models. Like, I don't know, what is the role of role models? Let me tell you why I'm bringing this up. Over the last 10 years, through all of the race stuff that was going on, people would be like, oh, there's no Martin. You either loved Martin Luther King, you attacked him for his character or his theology, or you loved him for his leadership or whatever. Both sides used him, right? But I was thinking, there's no more leaders like Martin Luther King. And in fact, we've moved from a leader culture to an influencer culture. See, leaders have a vision, and they want to get people to follow that vision and go through with it. Influencers don't have a vision, they have a brand. And an influencer is usually the brand. I'm the brand, I'm the influencer, right? I'm the brand. I want you to like and subscribe to my channel. I want you to follow what I'm doing. I want you to support what I'm doing. It's not leadership, because leadership has a vision and leads people that way. I'm the lead pastor of a church. I don't even care if my people in the church are subscribed to my channel. I don't even mention when I put music out, nothing. I'm working on a book right now that's going to be crazy. I don't even mention that stuff to my church. If people find out, they do it. Kirk Kennedy is different than on this than when I'm in my church. I'm Pastor Kirk to these folks. I'm not even worried about being, it's not even about that. I enjoy making these videos. I think by God's grace, I think I'm good at some of this stuff. But I'm not, but there's something about the idolization of role models. So we used to have leaders, and then it became influencers. And so you have, and tonight, Strack and I are back for season 6, episode 1. We're going to pick up on this idea as we talk about this, the age of insecurity that we live in and how do we get there. This is kind of connected. But there's something about our desire to mimic, idolize, and want people, even Christians, even believers, want people who are talented to follow. And I don't understand why. Like, we don't want to follow Jesus as a role model. We want to follow this basketball player, this singer. We're blown away because someone's talented and they start telling us about life. And I remember one time Tom Cruise was like talking about politics and all this stuff. And I remember thinking like, hey, bruh, like, you're a good actor and I like your movies, some of your movies, the Mission Impossible joints be tough. But man, you because you can act, like, you're not nothing to me that I'm going to take like my views on life from you. But a lot of people do. Every day I get notifications about what Gisele Bündchen was wearing, or Kim Kardashian's bangs, or this athlete. And it's just like, we are infatuated with role models. But today, what is the role of a role model? Like, what is the role? A couple of years, like nowadays, you can call yourself a public, what is it? A public official or something like that. Or we had life coaches. There were people who were life coaches that didn't even have their life together. But there's something about the idea of a role model that we want. We get offended because people who are actors on Disney are not in real life, or jerks. And then we're all hurt about my children. Let me just say this in case it's not making sense. There's no parent in this world that should want someone to be their kids' role models because they're famous. And to be honest, on the flip side, it is not the responsibility of anyone famous to be a role model for your child. If you're a believer in the Lord like me, then you understand the heart of people and who people are. We know that ultimately we're all sinful. And don't get me wrong, it's good for people to look up to you. There's people in my church that look up to me, but I tell my church all the time, they will attest to this. I will say consistently from the pulpit, God doesn't need me. In fact, on my album, this album right here, the best album this year and the best rapper as a pastor is right now. On this album, there's a song called The 10 Traps Commandments. It's a play on Biggie Smalls, because I'm plump like Biggie. He had a song called 10 Crack Commandments. So I did 10 Traps Commandments to pastors. And in the song, I say, rule number 1, remember, God doesn't need you. He's God, but he never has a problem using people. Jesus, Matthew 23, Pharisees on Moses' seat. God is using them, but they're not with him in eternity. Right? God doesn't need me. We had a meeting with my church last night. I told them, I say that all the time to the Lord. I'm grateful that people look up to me, but God doesn't need me. But we act like we need people. Like, what is it about people being famous that we feel like we want our kids to be like them? And let me tell you what I think it is. This is what I think it really is. I think it's this is what I think it is. I think it's because we live in a culture of consumerism. Capitalism equals consumerism, and success is money and power, right? We want our children to be successful, but often not in character. Years ago, we used to want our children to be successful in character. Now we want our children to be successful economically, financially. So role models are usually not role models by character. They're role models by financial success, right? We want our children to have financial success because that has become more important to us than character. I mean, in all honesty, and I know I always kick at the right, and it's because I came from the right, but that's why Donald Trump became the one-stop shop. Because you didn't kick. There was a point where I remember, I'll never forget this. In 2016, at the Shepherd's Conference, John MacArthur had a conference, 2016. And him was on the stage with Al Mohler and two other guys. I can't remember who they was. I want to say Ligon Duncan, but I could be wrong. But I know it was Al Mohler and John MacArthur. And someone asked a question about Donald Trump running for president. And John MacArthur said that it is the judgment of God on our country that he's running for president. And Al Mohler backed him up. In 2020, them dudes said no Christian would vote Democrat that has to vote for Donald Trump and was acting like he's the man that God has chosen. What a 4-year swing. I was like, wow, that's crazy, right? This guy has no character. I think it's hilarious that he has 91 charges and 5 indictments or 4 indictments. It's statistically impossible that he's not guilty of at least one of them, especially as corrupt as he's proven to be his whole life. But yet somehow he's a role model. I don't get it. And if you're a believer, help me. I don't get it. I don't want my kids to be like any of these folks. I tell my boys, their ways, I don't want you to be like your dad. I don't understand. Like, what is the role of role models today? Because role models today are all about benefiting self. Now, there are some Christian influencers I bang with, and I think they do a good job. I think they do a good job trying to point people to Jesus. I know I do that. I don't know if my channel will ever get to theirs. I'm not necessarily trying to, but if it does, fine. But I don't want to be America's pastor or something like that. I don't want to be a role model. I just want to be faithful to the Lord. And if people emulate that, I'm fine with that. Paul told his people, follow me as I follow Christ, right? But there is something about role models, and that's destroying our country. Where is this false sense of, once you become financially successful, my children should be like you? You could have terrible character, and we get offended when somehow that character is revealed. Look, this is 2023. We have access to people's lives in much more significant ways. No one, and I mean no one, should be looking for people who are celebrities to be role models. Basketball, I'm glad you can dunk, bro. You can shoot the lights out. I'm a Washington Commanders season ticket holder for years, since 2005. I'm at the games. Preach on Sunday, get up to the game, screaming my face off sometimes, walk away angry a lot of times. But it's just a game. In the stands where I'm at, we'll watch people will be fighting. It's because they had a couple of beers. They had too many beers, though, right? But they'll be fighting, arguing over the game, cussing at the stand, cussing at the players, mad fighting every week. And I'm just like, bro, it's just a game. After the game, the NFL players go down, and people from each team, they're not enemies. Only the fans are enemies. The players, they're getting paid millions of dollars to compete. They kneel, pray together, and they leave. These people take it so serious. They act like their lives depend on the team winning. There is an unhealthy way we view people who are celebrities, and we need to just stop. I don't even care if you're not a Christian. Like, there's no celebrity that, because they're a celebrity, is better than you. And definitely not for your children. You're going to love your children much more than anybody famous will. They may get more excited because we have this insatiable desire to be connected to people who are famous. But the reality is, you're the best role model for your children. And you might be the best role model in your community. But ultimately, if you're a believer, the only role model is Jesus. And we've lost sight of that somehow. And I just don't get it. I don't care. There's no politician, there's no athlete, there's no singer, there's no actor, there's no rapper that's going to be a better role model than the Lord. But we are just lost. We're so fascinated by people being famous. And I just think, wow, what does that say about us? What does it say about us that we want to be like people who are famous so bad? Are we that superficial? Do we really believe that what does it gain a man to, does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but then to lose his soul? Do you really believe that? Do you actually believe that? Because if we do, who cares what Jay-Z and whoever else that's Elon Musk and whoever else does? They're going to stand before the Lord one day. And guess what? All that they acquired is not going to save them. But if you're a genuine believer, you're going to have the eternal riches. It's time to retire role models because they're famous. If someone's going to be a role model to my kids and it's not me, humanly speaking, then I want it to be someone that loves the Lord. But ultimately, I want their role model to be the Lord. But what do I know? I'm just tired of seeing athletes, actors and actresses, singers have influence over us because they're famous. They are not better than us. They're not better than us. We are the underdogs, especially if you're a believer. You're the underdog. And that's a good thing because Jesus was an underdog. And look at who he is. Kirk Kennedy, signing off. Grace and peace.